I get it. You told yourself you were going to study, but now you're on Instagram, TikTok, Reels, whatever. But the point is, you haven't got any work done. That's the really tricky thing about focus, because you know when you're not being focused, you feel guilty about it. But at the end of the day, it still feels like you can't control it, and ultimately you can't control your own impulses. And the scary thing is, far beyond studying or academics, focus is something that branches to almost every aspect of your life and is going to play a big part in whatever career you take a part in the future. And I think something really important to note is that in this current world, this current modern landscape where everything is dominated by short form content, having the ability to focus is not just a mandatory requirement as it was in the past, but now it's a skill that almost gives you a competitive edge over other people. Since other people are just, stuck at home, doom scrolling, they've got the attention span of like a bloody goldfish. So essentially in this video, I'm not just going to tell you how to become focused, but also how to stay focused and how to make it easy for yourself so that it feels as if you're doing something natural and not forcing yourself to lock in. Hi, I'm Andrew, and after scoring within the top 0.1% of students in my state, I'm currently studying medicine at one of the top universities in Australia. And my main goal on this channel, and I know it's a little bit small and we're trying to build it, but our main goal here is to really build up a community of like-minded, hardworking students who really want to improve themselves and learn how to study effectively. So if this sounds like something you might be interested in, go ahead and subscribe down below and follow this journey as we build up the channel and as I try and teach you as much stuff as I possibly can. Okay, so before we get into how to focus, I think the very first thing is to actually discuss what focus is. And I think something people confuse focus with a lot is the word concentration. And so the way I like to think about concentration is your ability to be fixated on a certain task, a specific activity, a certain object for a certain amount of time. Now, on the other hand, I like to think of focus as a sort of function of two different things. The very first thing is your ability to remove distractions. So that's anything that's going to take you on a different path to what you want to achieve, whether that might be a really small task like studying for one night, or whether that might be a long-term goal like, getting into medicine like I had to do. I believe that the second function of focus is your ability to stay concentrated in spite of any distractions or any external pressures that you might be facing. And so when you combine these two different definitions together, I think that makes for a more comprehensive definition of focus itself. And that's going to allow you to break down what areas you might need to target in order to stay more focused. Now, before I even tell you to put your phone down, which is something that I know you're thinking about and I know you've thought about before, the very first thing that you need to do is think about not eliminating little distractions, but rather building a really healthy study environment that is going to enable you to optimize your performance and your focus. And so ideally, that would be a quiet environment within your own house. Whether that might be the living room, the kitchen bench, whether that might be your own bedroom. And I know that it's not feasible for every single person to be able to find somewhere in their house that's super quiet and really easy to focus, because I know that you might be living with siblings or other family members. But I think the most important part of the environment that you select is going to be somewhere that you can sit down and you can feel really comfortable in. You feel like you can sit there for hours and focus on whatever activity that has been put in front of you. Another great tip is to find an area to focus in that is outside of your bedroom. And so a little bit of a psychological trick is that whenever you're inside your bedroom, your brain has sort of been hardwired to make you feel sleepy, to make you feel a bit drowsy, tired, and ultimately unfocused. So what is recommended by researchers and top tier psychologists is to actually find a space outside of your bedroom. And so if you find an environment outside of your bedroom, such as the living room or wherever else in your house, or you could even use something like a public library, a school library, university library. If you find an environment like that and you train your brain to lock in whenever you enter that environment, And if you allow your brain to associate a certain environment with focus, with concentration, with attention, then it's going to be a whole different psychological experience. And it's going to be a whole lot easier locking in and focusing, because every time that you enter that environment, your brain is already going to be hardwired to start focusing. And so it's going to become almost an autopilot thing where you enter a specific space and you start getting into that mental headspace to study effectively. All right, now that we've talked about your study environment, let's talk about that damn phone. It's your biggest enemy. It's my biggest enemy. It's everyone's biggest enemy. And it's the one thing that's probably going to stop you from being focused. Because here's the thing. A really big misconception about being focused is that it's some linear thing, that at every single step of the way, you have to put in the same amount of effort to stay focused. I think it's completely different, because people often get into rhythms and what you might call the flow state when you're studying. The hardest part is actually starting to study itself. And so it looks a little bit like an exponential curve when you're starting to study. It's really hard at the start to lock in, but after you build up a little bit of momentum, it just gets easier and easier and easier to stay focused. Now, what your phone is going to do to you is that even if you just pick up your phone to look at a notification for, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, it's going to break that momentum that you've built over 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. And what that's going to do to you is way more detrimental than you might even realize, because you might have been in this mental headspace. You might have been extremely locked in that flow state for a specific, subject topic. And as soon as you look at that phone, as soon as you put yourself in a position where you are being distracted, that's going to take you out of that headspace, and you're ultimately going to lose that momentum. So now that we've established that, your phone is your biggest enemy when it comes to studying, what are some things that we can actually do about it to combat? The thing that I see a lot of people doing is, putting screen time on their phone, putting a bunch of different restrictions, using fancy apps and all of this random jargon. But I don't think that that's the best way to go about it at all. You see, I've tried these different techniques before. I remember a certain person telling me that, in order to access YouTube on their phone or like a game on their phone, they'd make it really hard to do so. So you'd have to go into the search tab and then you'd have to search up the thing. And then when you clicked on the app, it'd say something like, "Are you sure you want to proceed with this action?" And then you'd go into the app. And that actually works within the first week. It works within the first 2 weeks. But after that amount of time, it's going to be like clockwork. You're going to go in there with muscle memory and you're just going to bypass everything and go into the exact same app. And honestly, if you keep thinking about that app, if you keep thinking about distracting yourself, that small wall isn't going to stop you from being distracted, which is ultimately going to hinder your focus. And so yes, you heard it from me. I don't think you should restrict your phone at all. Instead, I want you to take your phone out of the picture entirely. And so what I mean is, every time that you are going to study, you need to put your phone in a different room. It's simple. It's really simple. You put your phone in a room that you're not currently in. And if you're out of the house, then that means, putting your phone in your bag where you're not going to be able to reach it. Once your phone is completely out of sight, whether that's in a room or in a bag, and all your notifications are completely silenced, that's where we move on to the next step. And this is the thing that I believe is so powerful to do, that instead of saying when you're going to study, you say, how long am I going to study for? And an easy way to do that is to simply set a timer. And I know what you're thinking, oh no, I don't have my phone anymore. I can't set a timer. Set it on your laptop or get a bloody stopwatch, alright? Let's say you set that timer to half an hour, 2 hours. It really doesn't matter. It's really up to your studying habits. But you need to tell yourself that until that specific time marker is up, until you hear the sound of the buzzer for the timer, you are not allowed to go anywhere near your phone at all. Now, this might not work the first time. This might not work the second time. But the key thing about this strategy is consistency. You need to do this over and over again until the cravings for your phone almost seem to disappear and you're able to sit down at a place and just lock in and stay focused. Because eventually, if you keep this up, like I managed to do over the course of like 2 years, by the end of that, you can have your phone beside you, you can have notifications going off, and you still won't be distracted at all because you are not tempted to pick up your phone at all. The last tip that I've got for you guys to stay focused is to set clear goals. I think it's really important to have a clear purpose on what you're going to do, whether that be in the short term or the long term. And so if we're thinking about a short study session, let's say you're studying for 1 hour after school, after uni, you need to know exactly what you're going to study and how long you're going to study it for. Because if you don't have these specific goals set, then it's hard to focus on anything. Because how can you concentrate? How can you focus? How can you remain fixated on a specific target or activity if you have no idea what target or activity you're trying to complete? I think you might find that when you combine really clear and effective goal setting with really good time management, so really making good use of those timers, whilst also making sure that you eliminate distractions, which most notoriously is going to be your phone. Those are the 3 main things that are going to put you on a whole different level compared to other people. And it's really simple things that you can, introduce to your everyday studying habits that are going to make a really, really big difference in how you study and how well you study. And with that, that's going to wrap up the video, but I really want to thank you guys for watching. I hope that you managed to take something out of it. And if you have any tips of your own or anything that's been working for you, make sure to go ahead and leave that in the comments section down below, because I wasn't able to cover absolutely everything in this video. But hope you really enjoyed. Leave a like if you'd like, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.